Okay, everyone, let's get started. Welcome to Confident Conversations, useful tools to address farmer stress and difficult topics. And I am Maria Pepitas with the University of Delaware Cooperative Extension. I'm an extension educator in family and consumer sciences, but I focus primarily on financial management, health insurance literacy, and most recently, farm stress. With me today are Jake Jacobs and Lori Walensky. Jake is our program assistant who is working with the Farsan project, or the Cultivamos project, as we call it here in the Northeast. And Lori Walensky is also an extension educator in farm risk management and is the director of the Northeast Risk Management Education Center. Today, we're going to be talking about the Confident Conversations Initiative. And the Confident Conversations Initiative started as part of the Northeast Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network, which, as I mentioned, in the Northeast is called Cultivamos. And within Cultivamos, the cooperative extension through the University of Delaware is a sub-awardee. And we were granted the opportunity to then work with the other extension systems in the region to try to address farm stress. And as we began our conversations in our extension, what they call cohort, we started to kind of really look for new ways to reduce stigma around farm stress. And though many of the folks who are part of the cohort have been through, for example, mental health first aid training or QPR, or other types of, I'll just say, standardized mental health programming, they felt like they needed another way to connect with farmers. They needed to find a way to, when they're sitting around the table with a farm family or out in the field talking and recognizing that people are stressed, to kind of be able to talk about mental health, but maybe not in a way that is so deep or heavy. And so part of then what the cohort wanted to do is develop and identify resources that could really help increase their capacity to work with farmers, to talk with them about mental health, and to increase their confidence to talk about stressors and mental well-being. And so as a result, we got a little extra money to develop some resources. And we developed 3 humorous videos that you'll get a chance to see today, some activities and curriculum that can be wrapped around the use of those resources, and some of the tools that can help improve communication around mental well-being. And we've also gotten a little funding to do training. And so that's what today is about. As we talked with our colleagues, they felt like the resources were great, as you'll see, and yet they wanted a little bit of modeling. How can I present this within my communities? This is the first part of a 4-part series. And today's session, what we wanted to do is sort of give you an overview of the resources, how you might use them, to share a little bit about the evaluation that we've received from those that have participated in our programs. And then the next 3 Wednesdays, at the same time, we'll actually be doing the program. So there are 3 lessons. The first one is called Conversations in the Cornfield, the second one, Super Farmer of Hope, and the third, the W. Farsan Emotional Weather Report. And so over the next 3 weeks, then you'll get a chance to see how I will present, or my colleagues will present, those materials as in a way that you would use with farmers, right, with farm audiences. So this next 4 weeks is really a train the trainer. And then resources would be available to you to then go forth and work with your own clientele. So just to kind of get our brains framed, right? We know farm life has stressors, and oftentimes we have one idea of what the plan is going to look like, and then reality hits, and we have lots of dips and uh, mountains and dives and things in the way, and life doesn't always happen the way we think it's going to happen. And resilience is really the ability to manage those ups and downs. And so one of the key pieces that within our curriculum is not only about how do we talk about stress and mental well-being from a stress management perspective, but also how do we manage stress from a resilience perspective. And so all of the presentations that we talk about, we really start out with this slide, right? Everyone always has mental health, and that mental health is a spectrum. And and for farmers, I think, one of the really key pieces to highlight for them is that they are their most important asset. Many farmers are about helping others. And they are the first to step up or raise their hand and say, I will help you. But you can't do that if you're not well. And so to kind of frame the conversation around keeping yourself well will help you able to continue to do the important work that you're doing and being the support person that you are within your family and community is really important. Another key point is, someone doesn't have to be in crisis to ask for or need help or support. And so, again, this is sort of one of the things that is kind of reinforced throughout each of the lessons. The idea that asking for help is a sign of strength, right? That is part of being resilient, is recognizing when you can't manage by yourself anymore and that asking for support or help is important. Whether that's I need an extra pair of hands to help with this chore, or whether it's I don't even know how to tackle this problem. I'm going to go talk with a counselor, or I'm going to talk with an extension agent, or I'm going to talk with my tax preparer. But to recognize, you know, sometimes you just need help. One of the other things that my extension folks have shared with me is, some farmers are really isolated, and they kind of like it that way, and they don't have a lot of practice talking with people, and so in a sense, it takes some practice then to open up if you're kind of one of those introverted, isolated type of people. And so part of what we're trying to do then is give people, so through some of the activities, give people some opportunity to practice. And the last key point really is that everyone can play a role in creating a supportive community. And so no matter what hat you wear, whether you're an extension educator or a healthcare provider or a farmer, you have a role, right, in creating a supportive community for farms and farm families. So knowing one's limits, knowing the strengths, right, can really help build relationships, build connections, and help manage stressors. And so part of what these 3 lessons do is help to kind of peel the onion a little bit, help people get a better sense of themselves and and give them some tools then that they can use in addressing stress and building resilience. Communication is key, as you know. It really helps strengthen relationships and trust. It builds community. It helps, can help in brainstorming and identifying creative solutions to things. And when it comes to mental health, it can really help destigmatize, right? The more we talk about it, the continuum, the easier it is to talk about it. Well, many of my colleagues really thought, using humor as a tool would be really a novel and wonderful idea to help change the context in which conversations about mental well-being are held. And so what we have tried to do in this curriculum and series is introduce strategies and skills for communication. And one of those really includes the idea of using humor as part of that. So in this slide, for example, I've got a little comic that really speaks to the importance of communication, right? We've got 3 doctors and they dropped their patient, and one of the doctors is saying, and that is why we lift on 3, right? So it's this idea like, hey, we really got to work together here, but it's done in a humorous sort of way. The cooperative extension team worked on developing some resources. And so the confident conversation using improvisation and positive communication when working with farmers under stress is a resource guide that has kind of curriculum outlines and resources that can help implement all of what I'm going to talk about today. And so there's a facilitator's guide. There's 3 PowerPoint presentations with the speaker's notes and activities based on the 3 video titles. And we're going to go deeper into this in just a moment. So there are 4 videos. I mentioned 3 before, but there are 4 videos. The first one really just introduces the comedians and is a short, maybe 1 minute something that just says, hi, I'm Kim, and hi, I'm Jim, and we're not farmers, but we had a great time, doing these presentations and really trying to bring their skills to addressing this issue. The other 3 are about 6 minutes long. Each of them are 6 minutes long, and those are the titles, right? Conversations in a Cornfield, Super Farmer of Hope, and the W. Farsan Weather Report. The other resource we have are 7 podcasts. And this podcast series is called Mending Our Fences. And it was a really interesting series that included sort of a conversation between 3 extension educators from around the region in the Northeast and a licensed social worker. And so each podcast focuses on a different stressor, and those are listed right there: finances, family, connection to the land, succession planning, uncertainty, grief and loss, and building resilience. And each of those topics are kind of discussed. The extension educators talk about what they're seeing out there in the field as they're talking with families and working with them. And then the licensed social worker kind of unpacks that a little bit and says, well, here are some of the signs and symptoms that you might see. Here are some of the ways that you as educators can support them. This is the way these kinds of stressors may impact the farmer, and kind of giving educators as well as farmers some skills to really normalize the way they're feeling, and then strategies to move past or work on that stressor. So each of them is very interesting, and they are available on Apple and Google Play, and the third one I'm not remembering off the top of my head. But those are the resources that have been developed and that are part of this cluster of resources that we're introducing to you today. I wanted to start out with, what's in the Facilitators Guide. We got lots of feedback from our extension educators about what kind of opportunities they may have to work with farmers. And so we really tried to create the resources in a way that could be used in a variety of ways. But we also recognize that some extension folks and ag service providers don't feel comfortable. They haven't been trained in this type of content. So what we've tried to do is provide a very brief kind of background information, the project context, a very brief review of literature that kind of covers some major theoretical points that would help someone feel more grounded in the content, that are related back to the presentations and the activities that are done in the lesson plans. So part 1 then is that background information, right? addressing farm stress, understanding what farm stress is, understanding burnout, understanding trauma and the impact on mental and physical well-being, defining what trauma-informed service provision is, and then understanding stigma, stress, and mental health. So these are pieces that may be half a page, a whole page, so short and sweet. Part 2 speaks to kind of moving from farm stress to building resilience through confident conversations. And so it talks a little bit about what's resilience and what's resiliency thinking. And I think that piece is important because it gets us out of just thinking about managing stress and getting us towards how do we help people flourish and move forward and work through whatever stressor that they're trying to manage. Then we provide some theoretical foundations for the content within Confident Conversations. And again, these are short descriptions of what's adult learning theory, what's positive psychology, what's appreciative inquiry, what is improvisation as a communication tool. Part 3 is really about using the video lessons and the podcast resources, and we provide a brief overview of an outline for the PowerPoint presentations as well as the podcasts. And then part 4 focuses on appendices, which are the tools, right? Links to more resources, the handouts, the evaluation tools. So this is like a complete package, I have to say. And references. If you're wanting to learn a little bit more about any of the topics that we just talked about, and other resources that are out there, it's got a nice list. So as I mentioned, the resources are really designed to be flexible. They can be used with a variety of audiences, from farm owners and operators to farm workers, to ag service providers, to kind of all those allied organizations that really support farming. And in terms of how one might use the materials, we've had some people want to use just the videos with the resources, and there's a referral publication. So that could take like 15 minutes. So for example, we've had some educators say, well, I might have 15 minutes at the beginning of a pesticide applicator training or a nutrient management training, and I could do something that just introduces the idea and the importance of managing stress, and then provide them with some local resources. Then we have the idea of the lessons without the videos. So the lessons are content specific and connected to the videos in terms of content, but could be done without the videos. And then the last option obviously would be lessons with videos. And so again, depending on the situation, what kinds of resources and time you have, the resources can be used in a variety of ways. So as I mentioned, communication techniques are really elevated in this initiative. And so one of the things that we're talking about is or we kind of reinforce and introduce as part of the lessons and as part of the foundational pieces for an educator is, this what's adult learning strategies, what's appreciative inquiry, what is positive psychology and supporting character strengths, the use of appropriate humor in educational settings, because not all humor is good, right? Some of it's very demeaning, for example. You wouldn't want to use that kind of humor. And then the notion of improvisation, the techniques of improvisation around communication, the notion of using yes and as a tool, and the other complementary one is thank you because. We know, experts agree, right, that service providers should strive to use adult learning principles in their interactions. I mean, this is, whether we're talking about mental health or any other kind of educational interaction. And so we want to create a safe environment. We want to establish trust and boundaries. We want to support autonomy and choice, creating collaborative relationships, creating opportunities for full participation, promoting resilience, and helping folks recognize that experiences, including mistakes, provide the best basis for learning. And so, I mean, that's sort of the big contextual framework that we're working under. And so all of that, right, is important and are foundations for no matter what kind of communication strategy you're using with clientele. So one of the theories that we speak to in this curriculum is the idea of appreciative inquiry. And this has been around since the mid-80s, I'd say. And it's a tool, right? It's an asset-based approach to organizational and social engagements that utilize questions and dialogue to help participants explore and uncover the unique strengths, advantages, or opportunities that they can build on to move towards success. The idea of appreciative inquiry then as a communication tool offers as a foundation a three-legged stool, right, of kind of coming at conversations around appreciation, inquiry, and wholeness. And by wholeness, they mean who's in the room, who's helping to contribute to creating solutions or identifying what the issues really are that need to be resolved. And so you see on the right-hand side of this slide, sort of this little flow chart, right? You know, we talk about defining what the issue is or the stressor is, kind of discovery through communication and conversation. You know, what are our dreams? Where do we want to get to? How do we get there? What's the design? And, you know, and then sort of destiny, right? How do we get there? And then it just keeps circling, right? Because things change, right? There's ups and downs again. But it's the idea of using appreciation and inquiry and getting lots of folks involved, you know, vested people involved in having the conversations that create solutions to the stressors. So again, that's one of the foundational pieces for all of the curriculum. So I want to talk about the first session now. And this one is called Conversations in a Cornfield. And what I'm going to do now is sort of introduce you to the three different lessons. Talk about the objectives, the focus of the video, and then play the video for you so you can see it, and then a sample activity that comes out of the debrief of the video. So in Conversations in a Cornfield, this is the lesson that focuses on understanding how humor can help manage stress and how communication is a really important tool to manage stress and isolation and build resilience. In the lesson itself, we talk about the yes and as a communication tool, and people actually get to practice using the tool. So those are the objectives of the lesson. The focus of the video is that isolation can impact mental well-being, that communication about stress and stressors is important, and that within the video, the comedians model in a professional way the use of yes and technique. And so though we're really novice at it, when we're watching the video, there may be opportunities where we can see examples of that yes and technique. So in terms of the lesson, this is the outline, right? And over here on the right is a picture that I took from the video. You know, I did a screenshot of the video. So in terms of the outline then, we have, we have introductions. We have kind of an overview that life has stressors and everyone has mental health. As I mentioned, it was that slide that I showed very early in my presentation, talking about how humor can help reduce stress. And then it introduces that improv communication technique, and there are some ground rules to make it successful. And so we talk about those. Then we do an activity. We're practicing the use of yes and when creating an ag event. So this is a little move into breakout groups, and people then practice using yes and as a tool to create an ag event. And then we debrief that. And then we do another activity where we're sharing a funny story and in small groups. And again, the groups, people are listening and they're using yes and as a way to positively kind of reinforce and support the person who's sharing their story. Then we view the video, we debrief the video, we talk about strategies to reduce isolation, and then we wrap up and distribute a resource sheet and evaluation. So one of my colleagues is going to post in the chat kind of the handouts that go along with each of these lessons. We put them all in one just for simplicity today. But for this particular session, what we're doing and distributing at the end is kind of a resource sheet, where to go for assistance if you need local mental health or other kinds of resources. So what I thought I would do now is actually play the video. So this is the Conversations in the Cornfield video.
I knew you'd be back.
Oh, I know, twice in a week. I'm sorry to be a burden. You're just the only person I can talk to.
You know I'm not a person, right? I'm a scarecrow.
I realize that. It's just, I don't know, lately I've been...
Hold your horses, farmer. No one ever asks how I feel. All I do is listen. And scare crows, and they're not even that scared of me. Do you know what a murder of crows will do if they get too comfortable on your arm?
A murder?
Yeah, it's what you call a flock of crows. Pretty cool, huh? The thing is, I feel isolated and unappreciated.
Oh boy, howdy, do I recognize that?
Ah! My entire job is dependent on the weather. If it rains too much, my straw droops and no one takes me seriously. If it's too hot, my straw breaks off and then I just become a sad crow.
Sad.
Crow.
Oh, believe me, I know what you mean about being isolated. Sometimes, I don't know, being a farmer feels like a piglet at Easter.
What?
Don't think too hard about it.
Well, talk about isolation. I am the last legitimate scarecrow in the entire county. I'm old school. All my other scarecrow friends have been replaced by technology. I mean, this isn't the farming I used to know. Things are changing so fast.
I can identify with that.
I am not done. My scare spouse left me. She said I was too alienating, too depressing. Well, my entire job is to scare things away. I am inherently alienating. When I do find passion with another scarecrow, I mean, our straw catches fire.
Okay, I didn't need to hear about that. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were under such pressure.
Well, you never asked, and I never told you. I just kept my feelings so bottled up inside that I finally burst.
Oh, I do that sometimes too. I totally understand what you mean.
It's not easy to ask for help.
Because you're a scarecrow?
Because I'm a man. Or a scare man, a man-like thing. You know, men aren't taught to talk about their feelings, so we don't. I mean, everyone expects us to be like John Wayne, all strong and silent and capable. Well, I am strong and silent and capable, but sometimes I just need to reach out. What everyone forgets is that John Wayne wasn't real. He was an actor.
Oh, I loved True Grit.
Oh, me too.
Right,
so
that one scene with it.
Hey, blah. But you know who has real grit? Farmers do, men and women. They carry a heavy load. They face endless uncertainty and shifting farming practices and the ridiculous expectations that they're supposed to be tough and on their own, like their mothers and fathers. Times are changing. I mean, look at you.
That's right. Look at me.
Sometimes it's not easy to ask for help.
You know, I bet my dad could have used some help when he was running this farm.
He got some help.
What do you mean?
Well, who do you think he talked to when there was a drought or when the avian influenza hit or when his teenage daughter said she wanted nothing to do with the family farm?
He talked to you about that?
Yeah, he did. Your dad was a stand-up guy, the best. And he only came out here a couple times, not enough, but you don't have to suffer in silence like your parents did, you know?
You're right. You're right. Times are changing. It's why I'm out here right now with you.
I'm glad you are.
You know, I hope he'd be proud of me. I'm not 17 anymore, and I'm doing my best to keep this family farm afloat. Continue the legacy. It's tough.
You're doing a good job.
Thanks, Scarecrow.
I have a name. It's Doug.
That's too bad. But Doug, thanks for listening and making me listen. I think we farmers are going to be A-okay as long as we don't isolate and try to do it all by ourselves, standing all alone like a
Scarecrow?
Scarecrow. You know, being out here with you like this, talking, makes me feel like we're in the movie. You know, Wizard of Oz. You know, the Scarecrow. If I only had a heart.
It was the Tin Man who was looking for a heart. Scarecrow wanted a brain.
Well, you, Doug, have both a brain and a heart.
Oh, I hate that movie.
Hopefully you got some chuckles out of that. But you can see how it's sort of using kind of over the top improvisational conversation as a way to elevate the idea of isolation and needing to talk and those kinds of things. So I'd be curious. So this slide, right, reflection time, this slide is part of the presentation, part of the slides in the presentation. And so these are the reflection questions that we would ask our participants. So, you know, what were some of the funny, quirky, or chuckle moments of the video, right? Did you see examples of yes and being used in the video? And which topics resonated with you? And obviously, when life gets overwhelming, who are the people you talk to? So I'm going to ask, what were some of the funny, quirky chuckle moments in the video for you? And you can kind of throw them in the chat. And my helpers will, I guess Jake and Lori will help me understand what you're saying. Personally, I love when he says, you know, I'm the only Scarecrow left in the whole county, right? And helping her know what a murder of crows are.
There were some very nice comments in the chat, and thank you folks for checking in. Alexandria chuckled and and several times, in fact. We got some repeats on those. The video was really good, except for when she touches him at the end. Am I overthinking this? I don't know. Is there an underlying message there? The Scarecrow feeling like he's being replaced by technology. I'm working on a project. I'm sorry, I'm not able to read it. I'm working on a project using lasers to scare birds out of fields. Boy, there's going to be another Scarecrow out of business. And I know, Violet, you weren't alone. I know that some people did have some audio problems. we haven't figured out a way to universally get that covered for everybody. And I'm sorry you weren't able to hear that.
Hmm.
Um, Kay Megan mentions having alienated his scare spouse because he's inherently alienated.
Yeah, but yeah, that's very
I love
funny.
that so many people caught these little side comments.
Mm.
The comment about it's not like it used to be because of technology.
Yeah. So you can see where, thank you, everybody. You can see where this video can really start generating conversations around, people's feelings, right? What they're experiencing, what are some of the stressors they are experiencing, and then potentially, having the opportunity to talk more about it, right? In a learning environment, right? Um, some people have shared with me, some of the women who've seen this video shared with me, the one comment that resonated with them was about, here's this young woman who's taking over the farm and the farm legacy, and that they were in that boat, right? And that really resonated with them as a stressor. So different people are viewing the video and sort of different things are resonating, which makes sense, right? So thank you for all of that. And are there any other questions about this particular lesson? I'll just say. All right, let's move on to lesson 2 or session 2. Session 2 is called Super Farmer of Hope. And here is our comedian Kim as our super farmer. I love that expression in her cape. So the objectives of this lesson is really understanding how connection to people and community can help manage stress, and recognize and cultivate character strengths. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, to learn the importance of hope in managing stress and building resilience. So those are the objectives of the whole lesson. In terms of the focus of the video, it's about building community and that hope can be created and fostered. And you'll see that in a little bit. So to the right, you see this very colorful image that are 24 character strengths that come out of the values in action materials. And so you can see these words, right? Creativity, judgment, honesty, leadership, love of learning, hope. All of these things are strengths that all of us have. All of us have all of them, but some people lean on and use certain aspects of their character more than others. Other aspects, right? So this lesson focuses on, again, sort of introductions, that life has stressors and that life is a, sort of mental well-being is a continuum. It introduces the notion of positive psychology and the 24 character strengths that enable resilience, right? Because when we have these kinds of character strengths, we have tools, right, to manage stressors. So as part of the lesson, we distribute this resource, and then we have a couple of activities where we do what is called strength spotting. And so we tell some stories, some little case stories about farmers or farm workers that, did something. And then we ask people to go, okay, so which character strengths do you see as a result of, the story that we told you? So for example, I think one of the short stories is like Danny, he's a farm worker. He noticed that one of his co-farm workers was stealing some of the vegetables that were harvested and taking them home and then selling them on the side. And so Danny told his supervisor. So, that's the little story. So what are some of the strengths that Danny has exhibited because he, that was his behavior, right? So some people might say bravery, honesty, fairness, gratitude for having the job that he has and not wanting to lose it, right? So, but there's multiple answers, right? So that's an example of the kind of activity that we might do, right? So we kind of do a couple of those and then encourage people to practice strength spotting. We view the Super Farmer of Hope video, we debrief the video, we review some strategies for building hope, and then obviously wrap up and do some resource sharing and evaluation. So that is the Super Farmer of Hope outline. And what I thought I would do now is share the Super Farmer of Hope video.
Did you hear?
What?
Did you hear?
What?
There's a superhero in Vermont.
A superhero. Is it Bernie?
No, it's the Super Farmer of Hope.
Is that a thing?
Hope? Super Farmer. Super Farmer. Super Farmer.
Hope!
Oh, so you're the one everyone's talking about. The Super Farmer of Hope.
Yes, I represent the H word.
Harvest?
Hope!
First of all, that's not a thing. Super Farmer of Hope. Second of all, how can you have hope? Tell me how you can have hope. Tell me how anyone can have hope.
Not have hope? My God, man, what do you mean?
My neighbor Bill, he's about to lose his dairy farm at 30 years. My teenage son thinks that farming is too hard and a waste of time. My farm manager has to hide every single time he sees a cop car because they won't stop hounding him just because he's brown.
Because he's an immigrant?
No, he was born and raised in upstate New York. He can't even get a bank loan to buy his land.
Wow. That is a lot to unpack. Let me take off my cape. Sit. Listen, no one said farming would be easy. Times are hard. And daring to have hope, that can be scary.
You're the Super Farmer. Have you ever watched your entire life's plans unravel?
Yes. And one time I even watched my entire cape unravel when someone stepped on it.
I'm being serious.
So am I. I had to buy a new cape.
Okay, I'm out of here.
Wait! Listen, I know farming's a lot. Long hours, COVID, climate change, changing regulations, crazy market fluctuations. You have a drought one week and a flood the next. We have grim bank accounts and even grimmer futures. Is that a word? Grimmer? And then to top it off, we have so much division in this country. Good grief, I hadn't thought about everything all together like that. That is a lot. Oh, this is terrible. Things are really terrible. They're worse than I thought. Oh.
But we're not alone.
What?
We're not alone. We have each other.
What do you mean, regular farmer?
Well, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, farmers realized the importance of joining together. They organized, they built cooperatives, they literally joined together. They built 4-H. 4-H. The Farmers Bureau, one of the strongest lobbies in the United States. You know, farmers realized the importance of building hope together. It's like, you know, they literally planted seeds. Seeds of hope.
Oh, too far with that last one. You almost had me, but that seeds business, come on. But you're right. The super farmers among us.
Whoa. Among us? I mean, there are others?
Oh, yes. Many. And the super farmers among us, we have to have hope. Without hope, what do we have?
Nothing.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing. Without hope, you have nothing.
That sounds like it belongs on a needlepoint pillow. Awkward. You know, now that you say it, it seems like there's a superhero in each of us that needs to be cultivated. But when you're the superhero, tell me, how do you cultivate hope?
How do we cultivate hope? Do you need me to spell it out for you?
I do. Hey, your cape!
When you feel hopeless, take some deep breaths and find the one thing that is working or that you are grateful for. When you feel feel hopeless, work on strengthening personal connections. It's the human and the emotional connections that keep us going. When you feel hopeless, do something, anything that brings you joy. When you feel hopeless, talk to someone. Share your insecurities or worries. Keeping it all bottled up only makes it worse. And when you feel hopeless, find, build, brainstorm, create, deepen, cultivate, support, and be supported by your community.
I didn't expect to get so much out of you. I thought this whole sketch was going to be fluff.
I know. Listen, I know that farming is hard. It takes hard work. But it also takes resiliency and community and
Hope.
Yes, hope, regular farmer. No. Super farmer.
Does this mean I can fly?
No.
Another great video, right? Super farmer of hope. Oh my gosh. Okay, so again, here is the slide that comes after that video in our curriculum, and questions like what stands out for you after watching this. You know, do you know some super farmers and what makes them super farmers from your perspective? And then what character strengths did you see in the characters in the video? So again, it kind of reinforces the character spotting activity that we did earlier, and some of the other concepts around hope and resilience. So again, I'm going to ask if you want to put in the chat, you know, what stands out for you in this video that, you know, is appealing to you and maybe appealing to your audiences. You can type them in the chat, and Jake will help me out here.
I think people are holding their comments because they're so dazzled by the super farmer of hope.
Isn't she awesome? Aren't they awesome, really? And I want to give a shout out actually to Michelle Walford and Katie Young, who I think they're on today, and they were the film editors who put all of this together. So I want to give a shout out to them. All right, are there any questions about this particular lesson and or video?
One really notable comment is that the farmer ends up helping the super farmer.
Yeah, you got it. That's great. That's exactly the point, right? And sort of the notion that you never really know when you might be this super farmer of hope. Great observation.
Okay, Megan, I'm with you. Anyone can be a super farmer of hope to someone else. There it is.
There it is. Exactly.
Yep.
Thank you, K. Megan.
Yvonne Green, I'm not sure if I'm understanding your comment. Do you want to share? Do you want to unmute and tell us what you had in mind?
If I'm reading that correctly, it sounds like she's emphasizing the fact that stress can come from lots of different places. For example, a change from manual to digital, and having to learn new techniques after years of tradition, and how much stress that adds.
Right, that's exactly. And I was just trying to make that point that a lot of people did not want to become educated as far as computers were concerned and how to use them and how they could enforce that into their lives. And then with farmers, now we have them wanting we want our farmers to use transitional methods or go from some of the old methods that they're used to using and using new technology and new methods that they have to embrace. And that can be a very stressful situation. And this video super farmer of hope, I believe would help to ease that tension, ease that transition period, them having to give up things that they've had to do for years and accept climate smart or accept regenerative practices that in the past they may have rejected. I hope I didn't go on too long about that. Can you hear
No.
me?
Actually,
Yes.
Yvonne, yes, and it sounds like you're doing some direct service to farm producers. And you really hit a big one. I think we all hit a wall with COVID restrictions because suddenly we were asking an awful lot of people who might not have been really comfortable in the virtual world to suddenly be more restricted in their contacts and having to do meetings instead of face to face. They were doing them online and, virtual Zoom meetings and that kind of thing. I know that was especially difficult for a lot of farmers.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. Those are really,
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you very much.
really great observations. So thank you. All right, we are going to move on to the third session. Hopefully, here we go. Okay, and so our third session or lesson is WFARSAN, the emotional weather report. And the objectives here was really to understand the mental health continuum, understand the notion of cumulative stress and burnout and strategies to manage those, and then understand the role seeking help can play in managing mental well-being and addressing stressors. Those are the objectives of the lesson. In terms of the focus of the video, again, it reinforces that farm life has many stressors. It's okay to seek support, and there's a lot of different kinds of support. And so you can see, this is another clip from the video we'll see in just a few minutes. And one of the pieces in terms of the outline for this lesson, we're introducing, the topics. We're again reiterating that life has many stressors and that mental health is a continuum, and that burnout, right, is one of those aspects of mental well-being that is on that continuum. It speaks a little bit about the difference between burnout and depression. We kind of elevate those concepts, but then we distribute some information. This slide contains some of it about burnout, right? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And how do we spot it? And then, kind of peeling it apart a little bit, like understanding the work environment characteristics that can cause burnout. And so in this visual on this slide, it talks about the organizational aspects, the job-related aspects, and the personal aspects. And any of those or a combination of them are the things that can cause burnout. And so we talk about that and introduce that. I'll just say, call it a framework, right? For how to understand what burnout is. And then review some approaches that can help reduce burnout in the business. And then talk a little bit about self-care and why that's so important. Because going back to the beginning when I talked about, you are your most important asset, right? And so then we watch the weather report video, we debrief the video, and then share resources and do the evaluation.
Because Vern, I need coffee and you're the intern.
Oh, we're on.
Thanks, Vern. Caffeine, am I right? Welcome to the WFARSAN Weather Report, brought to you by Keep It Quiet Poultry Farms. Why talk when you can brood? Get it, Vern? Brood. I am weatherwoman Nadine Isaacson.
And I'm Vern Vernissage, weather intern. Looks like a depression is forming over the northeast, brought on by low pressure.
Yes, Vern, most of us know that generally speaking, low pressure systems can bring about depressions which result in rain, moisture, etc. in the real world. But in the WFARS and weather world, we recognize that sometimes high pressure can lead to depression.
We're still talking about rain, right?
Yes, Vern, and depression.
Well, you're saying depression an awful lot, Nadine.
Am I? Or am I not talking about depression enough? Welcome to the WFARSAN Emotional Weather Report.
Nadine, this is a weather report. We're talking about actual climate. People don't want to hear about farmers' emotional climate or their depression.
Boy, you are brutal like an early season frost.
Oh, that's what my mom says.
I like her. Listen, Vern, farmers are the unsung heroes of this country, literally keeping us all alive. Without these resilient farmers, we all suffer. Vern, we all suffer. In fact, we die. Vern, we die. Look at this pressure center here. With that pressure center comes lost floods, fields, fish, fallow fields, farm failures.
That's a lot of F words, Nadine.
How did you get this job?
I have a bright, toothy smile.
Many farmers feel frustrated and fed up, and they also feel
Totally. I'm sorry, I just got caught up in the F words.
they feel that they have to weather these storms alone, without empathy, without support.
Oh, they're like silos, like totally alone.
Yes, Vern, sort of, yes. And without empathy or support, they're isolated, with all of us in the country depending on their being strong, on their weathering the storm. But, like the silos, if they don't get the needed maintenance, they can eventually crumble,
Oh, that's deep.
like the turbulence that is thrown at them.
Like the pile in the barn. It's a shame they have to endure this alone.
They don't, Vern, they don't. That's the thing. There are people who get it, people who can help them with this stormy weather.
Stormy weather.
Oh no, stop. People who understand, who can listen, who can coach, and who can recognize the inherent value farmers bring. They can help them think creatively about how to strengthen their operations.
Extension folks.
Yes, how did you know that, Vern?
I have no idea.
You seem old for an intern.
I am.
The thing is, Vern, egg folks are hardworking, and they're resilient and innovative, but when it gets tough, they don't often use the tools and resources that are available to them.
Well, so extension folks are like an umbrella. Like when you walk outside and you get all wet and you think, oh my gosh, I have like 10 umbrellas in my closet at home.
Yeah, okay, sure, yeah, Vern, yeah.
But so there you sit, siloed, alone, and instead you could talk to farm folks, an extension person here, or a Sea Grant person here.
That's the middle of the ocean.
Okay, fine. Here, you see, the pressure gets more evenly spread, like a cirrus cloud.
You meteorologist, you. Yes. Extension and Sea Grant folks can help farmers expand their circle of support and build a stronger community. It takes courage, Vern, to address every day, to face your own emotional weather report. It takes courage to talk about mental health, and it takes courage to address it.
Well, if there's one thing farmers have, it's courage.
That's right, Vern.
I sense a front of optimism approaching with a bit of pleasant weather.
Well, that's the weather report for today, folks. So before you head out, make sure you grab an umbrella, some sunscreen, and maybe even a parka.
The future is unknowable.
Just like yours, Vern.
Still?
Yes, still.
So that is our third video. And so in this debrief slide, again, that's associated with the curriculum, we talk about different kind of stressors and, kind of get people talking about where do they get help when it comes to production or finances or work family balance or personal matters, and, getting them to kind of share resources and ideas around, how they manage those stressors and those fronts of depression, right? And then, getting them to think about some of the activities in a community, right? What can the community do to really help support you in times of stress or burnout? So those are kind of the debrief pieces to this particular video. So I'd love to hear any thoughts that you might have in the chat, but I'm also going to kind of keep moving forward here, because the next couple of slides really speak to what we've learned in our evaluation of these materials. And so what we have is a kind of a pre-post evaluation, asking people to rate on a scale of 1, not at all, to 4, really confident. Where they are on each of these statements. And right now we have about 64 respondents, so not quite enough to show any statistical significance. But what we're seeing is that average scores on each of the items shifts, right, from kind of less confident to more confident, especially around, if you look at these things around using humor to address stress, or using the yes and communication strategy, or spotting character strengths and identifying cumulative stress / burnout in self and others, right? And then knowing where to help, what resources that we can refer people to. So I'm feeling really pleased, and we could use your help, right? So I'm sort of in the process, if you decide you want to use these materials, I would love to get the evaluation sheets back so that I can begin to gather more information about how effective the materials are. Okay, so our next set of questions, again, we asked before and after, are the questions around likelihood to act, right? And so you can see we have a really nice positive feedback around using the materials, talking with others about stress, about using that yes and communication style, about using character strengths and character spotting or strength spotting as a tool in terms of communication, and then sharing information about burnout and whatnot. So I'm really pleased about those shifts in averages as well, because I think it's helping our educators as well as our farmers access resources and improve their understanding around the topics. We asked people, did they like the videos, right? And did the videos introduce the topic in a lighthearted way, increase awareness around mental well-being and farm stress issues, and provide some ideas about managing stress? And you can see 98% of the folks said yes, right? Some of the other feedback we got was they really liked the exaggerated notion of the videos because it was effective teaching methods. They liked the cartoons that we used in some of our presentations. And they liked the way videos could kind of, in a humorous way, elevate some of the really hard issues that are out there in a humorous way. So in terms of kind of bringing us back to big picture, right? The Confident Conversations Facilitators Guide includes that background information I talked about, lesson plans, links to the videos, the handouts that you would need, and the evaluation tools for each of the lessons. Links to the Mending Our Fences podcasts, which are available on Apple, Spotify, and Google Play. And then, as I mentioned before, in the Facilitators Guide, there's some reference lists and links to things, and I've just pulled out a few here. Links to positive psychology, links to information about character strengths, and links to the idea of appreciative inquiry. all of them are easy reads, easy to ingest, easy to begin to incorporate into the work that we do. So the Confident Conversations can be found at this Google folder. The PowerPoints, the videos, the Facilitators Guide, they're there. If you are interested in using the materials, we can share this URL with you. But I'm really asking, it's in, Google file. And, if you open up a PowerPoint in the Google file, it messes up the Google file. So, because it turns it into Google Slides. So please, please, please just download the materials and then look at them in your on your own computer. There's also more resources available through Cultivamos. There is a whole host of resources that have been developed through Cultivamos and the other cohorts, the training working group and the resource working group. Those are all listed right now on the Farm Aid website. If you just put in Cultivamos and Farm Aid, this website will come up. And there are things like additional podcasts, some lesson plans for working with farm workers around financial management, and they're in English and in Spanish. And then there's a Stronger Together service provider training information that's there. So just as a recap, today we covered our June 7th overview of the Confident Conversations. Next week, Lori will be presenting Conversations in the Cornfield, just the whole presentation, and you'll get a chance to really see it in action, the whole thing, participate to kind of get your feet wet and actually seeing how the lesson is modeled. And then the next 2 Wednesdays, we're going to do the other 2. And so I really encourage you to think about participating in these, because you'll have an opportunity to ask questions of us, of those who have done the presentations, and get an opportunity to kind of get some thoughts about how we used it and whatnot. So I really encourage you to participate in those. And then I'm just wrapping it up here. Thank you for attending. I think Jake or Lori is going to put a evaluation in the chat, URL to a Qualtrics survey. If you wouldn't mind taking a moment to just fill that out, we would really, really appreciate that. And then we will wrap it up for today.